Today, we're visiting 15 graves connected to some of the biggest names in Hollywood history. These aren't the stars whose faces still appear on movie posters or whose names are remembered around the world. They were the sons and daughters of legendary actors, musicians, and entertainers, people born into extraordinary families, but whose own stories slowly faded from public memory. Some tried to follow in their parents' footsteps, others chose a completely different path. But despite growing up surrounded by fame, many of them now rest in places that receive little public attention, often overshadowed by the legends they left behind. So, let's begin this quiet journey through 15 lives that history almost forgot. Number 1. Sage Stallone. The Stallone name is known around the world because of one man, Sylvester Stallone, but behind the legendary star was a son whose own story ended far too soon. His name was Sage Stallone. Born on May 5, 1976, in Los Angeles, Sage was the eldest son of Sylvester Stallone. Growing up around Hollywood, he naturally developed a love for movies. In 1990, he made his acting debut alongside his father in Rocky V, playing Robert Balboa. Many believed it was the beginning of a successful acting career. However, Sage chose a different path. Instead of chasing blockbuster fame, he became passionate about preserving classic films. He co-founded Grindhouse Releasing, a company dedicated to restoring forgotten cult movies. Friends remembered him as quiet, intelligent, and deeply devoted to film history. Everything changed on July 13, 2012. Sage was found dead in his Los Angeles home at just 36 years old. His sudden death shocked Hollywood and fueled endless rumors. But after an official investigation, the Los Angeles County coroner concluded that he died from a heart attack caused by atherosclerotic coronary artery disease, not from illegal drugs as many had assumed. The tragedy deeply affected Sylvester Stallone, who publicly asked people to remember his son with respect rather than speculation. Today, Sage Stallone rests at St. Martin of Tours Catholic Cemetery in Los Angeles. While visitors occasionally stop by to honor him, his grave remains far quieter than those of many Hollywood legends. Overshadowed by one of the most famous names in cinema, Sage's life serves as a reminder that even those born into extraordinary fame can quietly fade from public memory. Number 2. Judy Lewis. For decades, Clark Gable was celebrated as the king of Hollywood, while Loretta Young was one of America's most admired actresses. But hidden behind their glamorous careers was a secret that remained buried for years, the existence of their daughter, Judy Lewis. Born on November 6, 1935, Judy entered the world under extraordinary circumstances. Because Clark Gable and Loretta Young were both major stars and not married to each other, her birth was carefully concealed to avoid a public scandal. Loretta later adopted Judy, and for much of her childhood she was led to believe she had been adopted rather than born to her own mother. As she grew older, Judy began noticing the striking resemblance she shared with Clark Gable. Eventually, she discovered the truth about her parents. Rather than allowing the secret to define her, she built her own career as an actress, writer, and therapist. In 1994, she published the memoir Uncommon Knowledge, finally revealing the story she had carried for so many years. Judy passed away from heart failure on November 25, 2011, at the age of 76. Although she spent much of her life connected to two of Hollywood's biggest legends, she was remembered more for her honesty and resilience than for her famous parents. Today, Judy Lewis rests at Holy Cross Cemetery in Culver City, California. Her grave is peaceful and rarely visited by the public. Overshadowed for decades by the extraordinary fame of Clark Gable and Loretta Young, her remarkable life has gradually become one of Hollywood's forgotten family stories. Number 3. Dean Paul Martin. Dean Martin was one of the biggest entertainers of the 20th century, admired as a singer, actor, and member of the legendary Rat Pack. But behind his remarkable career was the heartbreaking story of his son, Dean Paul Martin. Born on November 17, 1951, Dean Paul grew up surrounded by fame. Rather than relying solely on his father's name, he built an impressive career of his own. During the 1960s, he found success as one half of the pop trio Dino, Desi and Billy before later becoming an actor, appearing in several television series and films. Beyond Hollywood, he developed a passion for aviation and proudly served as a captain in the California Air National Guard, earning respect for his dedication to military service. On March 21, 1987, tragedy struck while he was flying an F-4 Phantom fighter jet during a routine training mission. His aircraft crashed into California's San Bernardino Mountains during severe weather, killing both him and his weapons systems officer. He was only 35 years old. The accident shocked both Hollywood and the military community, ending a life that still held enormous promise. The loss devastated Dean Martin, who reportedly never fully recovered from his son's death. Friends said the tragedy changed him forever, and many believed it marked one of the darkest chapters of his life. Today, Dean Paul Martin rests at Los Angeles National Cemetery in California. Although his father remains one of Hollywood's most celebrated icons, Dean Paul's grave is a quiet place that receives little public attention. His story reminds us that even the children of entertainment legends can slowly disappear from public memory, leaving behind only a few visitors who still remember their remarkable lives. Number 4. Christian Brando. Marlon Brando is widely regarded as one of the greatest actors in Hollywood history. But while his career inspired generations of performers, the life of his eldest son, Christian Brando, became one of the family's greatest tragedies. Born on May 11, 1958, Christian grew up under the enormous shadow of his father's fame. Life inside the Brando family was often troubled, and Christian struggled with personal problems from an early age. Although he briefly explored acting, he never achieved the success many expected from the son of such a legendary star. His life changed forever in 1990 when he fatally shot Dag Drolet, the boyfriend of his half-sister Cheyenne Brando, at the Brando family home in Los Angeles. Christian insisted the shooting was accidental during a heated confrontation, but the case attracted worldwide media attention. He later pleaded guilty to voluntary manslaughter and served several years in prison. After his release, Christian largely stayed out of the public eye. Despite occasional interviews, he never escaped the tragedy that had defined his life. Years of emotional struggles and declining health followed, making him one of Hollywood's most unfortunate celebrity children. Christian Brando died of pneumonia on January 26, 2008, at the age of 49. Today, he rests at Calvary Cemetery in Los Angeles, California. Although visitors still remember the legendary Marlon Brando, Christian's grave is rarely visited. His story remains a painful reminder that fame and privilege cannot protect a family from heartbreak, loss, and lasting regret. Number 5. Ennis Cosby. Bill Cosby was once known as one of America's most beloved television stars, but long before his reputation collapsed in scandal, he suffered a heartbreaking loss that changed his family forever: the death of his only son, Ennis Cosby. Born on April 15, 1969, Ennis was remembered as a kind and determined young man. Unlike his famous father, he had little interest in the spotlight. After overcoming learning challenges caused by dyslexia, he dedicated himself to education and dreamed of helping children with similar struggles. Friends described him as compassionate, hardworking, and committed to making a positive difference. Everything changed on January 16, 1997. While driving through Los Angeles late at night, Ennis pulled over after getting a flat tire on Interstate 405. As he waited beside his car, he was confronted by an armed robber. During the attempted robbery, Ennis was shot in the head and killed at just 27 years old. The shocking crime made headlines across the country and left Hollywood in mourning. The tragedy deeply affected the Cosby family. Although Bill Cosby continued working for several years, those close to him said the loss of his son was something he never truly overcame. Today, Ennis Cosby rests at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Hollywood Hills, California. Despite the enormous fame once associated with the Cosby name, his grave is a peaceful place that receives few visitors. His life is remembered not for celebrity, but for the promise of a compassionate young man whose future was stolen far too soon. Number 6. Eric Douglas. Kirk Douglas became one of Hollywood's greatest legends, while his son Michael Douglas followed in his footsteps to become an Academy Award-winning actor. But another son, Eric Douglas, lived a very different story, one marked by addiction, disappointment, and an early death. Born on June 21, 1958, Eric was the youngest son of Kirk Douglas. Like the rest of his family, he pursued acting and appeared in several films and television productions during the 1980s and 1990s. However, despite his famous last name, he never achieved the success enjoyed by his father or his older brother. Throughout his adult life, Eric struggled with alcohol and drug addiction, leading to repeated arrests and time in rehabilitation. On July 6, 2004, Eric was found dead in his Manhattan apartment at the age of 46. The New York medical examiner later ruled that he died from an accidental overdose caused by a combination of alcohol and prescription medications. His death shocked many who had followed the famous Douglas family, ending years of personal battles that he was never able to overcome. The tragedy deeply affected the Douglas family, who spoke openly about Eric's long struggle with addiction and the pain it had brought to those who loved him. Today, Eric Douglas rests at Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery in Los Angeles, California. While visitors regularly come to honor Hollywood icons buried nearby, Eric's grave is rarely among the most visited. Overshadowed by one of cinema's most celebrated families, his life remains one of Hollywood's quieter tragedies. Number 7. Charles Chaplin Jr. Charlie Chaplin remains one of the greatest legends in film history, creating timeless classics that transformed silent cinema forever. But while the world celebrated his extraordinary career, the life of his eldest son, Charles Chaplin Jr., followed a far more tragic path. Born on May 5, 1925, Charles Chaplin Jr. grew up surrounded by Hollywood fame. Inspired by his father's success, he pursued acting and appeared in films such as The Beat Generation and Fangs of the Wild. Although he showed promise, he struggled to escape the enormous shadow cast by one of cinema's most famous names. No matter what role he accepted, comparisons with his legendary father were unavoidable. Away from the cameras, Charles faced personal difficulties that affected both his career and his health. As opportunities became fewer, he gradually disappeared from Hollywood's spotlight, living a far quieter life than many had expected for the son of Charlie Chaplin. On March 20, 1968, Charles Chaplin Jr. died from a pulmonary embolism at just 42 years old. His unexpected death shocked those who knew him and brought another painful loss to the Chaplin family. Today, Charles Chaplin Jr. rests at Holy Cross Cemetery in Culver City, California. While thousands of film lovers continue to celebrate Charlie Chaplin's incredible legacy, his son's grave remains a peaceful and rarely visited place. His story reminds us that carrying one of Hollywood's most famous family names did not guarantee lasting success or protect him from being slowly forgotten over time. Number 8. Diana Barrymore. John Barrymore was one of Hollywood's greatest stars, earning the nickname The Great Profile for his unforgettable performances. But for his daughter, Diana Barrymore, growing up in one of America's most famous acting families brought more pressure than privilege. Born on March 3, 1921, Diana inherited both her father's talent and the public's expectations. She pursued a career in acting and appeared in several films, stage productions, and radio programs during the 1940s. Although she possessed undeniable charisma, she constantly struggled to step out of her father's enormous shadow. Her personal life soon became troubled by failed relationships, alcoholism, and emotional difficulties that repeatedly interrupted her career. In 1957, Diana published her autobiography, Too Much, Too Soon, honestly describing her battles with addiction and the heavy burden of living as the daughter of a Hollywood legend. The book later became a successful film, bringing renewed attention to her painful story. On January 25, 1960, Diana Barrymore died from a drug and alcohol overdose at the age of just 38. Her tragic death shocked Hollywood and became another heartbreaking chapter in the famous Barrymore family history. Today, Diana Barrymore rests at Mount Sinai Memorial Park Cemetery in Los Angeles, California. While the Barrymore family name is still remembered around the world, Diana's grave receives few visitors. Her story remains a powerful reminder that fame can bring admiration, but it can also leave behind loneliness, overwhelming expectations, and a life that fades quietly from memory. Number 9. Rebecca Wells. Orson Welles changed cinema forever with Citizen Kane, while Rita Hayworth became one of Hollywood's greatest screen icons. Their daughter, Rebecca Wells, was born into one of the most glamorous families in entertainment, yet despite her famous parents, she chose a life far away from the spotlight. Born on December 17, 1944, Rebecca spent her childhood surrounded by Hollywood royalty. As the daughter of two legendary stars, many expected she would become an actress herself. She appeared in a few television productions when she was young, but unlike her parents, she had little interest in building a career in show business. Instead, she preferred a quiet and private life, avoiding the fame that had defined her family for generations. Although she rarely gave interviews, Rebecca remained closely connected to both Orson Welles and Rita Hayworth throughout her life. Friends described her as warm, intelligent, and determined to be known for more than simply being the child of two Hollywood legends. Rebecca died from cancer on October 17, 2004, at the age of 59. Her passing received relatively little public attention compared with the worldwide fame once enjoyed by her parents. It marked the quiet end of a life that had largely unfolded away from cameras and red carpets. Today, Rebecca Wells rests at Holy Cross Cemetery in Culver City, California. While film lovers continue to celebrate the extraordinary legacies of Orson Welles and Rita Hayworth, Rebecca's grave remains a peaceful place visited by only a handful of admirers. Her story reminds us that not every child born into Hollywood royalty chooses the spotlight, and many are gradually forgotten as the legends of their parents continue to shine. Number 10. Nat Kelly Cole. Nat King Cole's smooth voice made him one of the greatest singers in American history, while his daughter Natalie Cole carried the family's musical legacy to a new generation. But another member of the family, Nat Kelly Cole, lived a much quieter and far more difficult life. Born in 1959, Nat Kelly was adopted by Nat King Cole and his wife, Maria Cole, and was raised alongside his siblings in one of America's most famous musical families. Although surrounded by extraordinary talent, he chose not to pursue the same level of fame as his father or sister. Instead, he preferred a quieter path, occasionally appearing in small acting roles while spending most of his life away from Hollywood's spotlight. Friends remembered him as gentle and private, someone who never seemed comfortable living under the weight of such a legendary family name. Sadly, his life was cut short. On January 19, 1995, Nat Kelly Cole died from complications related to AIDS at just 36 years old. His passing received relatively little media attention compared with the worldwide fame of the Cole family, quietly becoming one of the lesser-known tragedies connected to one of America's most celebrated entertainers. Today, Nat Kelly Cole rests at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California, beside other members of the Cole family. Visitors regularly come to pay tribute to Nat King Cole and later to Natalie Cole, but few realize that Nat Kelly is buried there as well. Overshadowed by two legendary musical icons, his grave remains a peaceful and rarely visited place. His story reminds us that even within one of the most famous families in American music, some lives slowly disappear from public memory despite the remarkable legacy that surrounds them. Number 11. Jonathan Peck. Gregory Peck was admired around the world for unforgettable performances in films like To Kill a Mockingbird and Roman Holiday. But behind the legendary actor was a personal tragedy that many movie fans have forgotten: the heartbreaking story of his eldest son, Jonathan Peck. Born in 1944, Jonathan grew up in a family known throughout Hollywood. Rather than following his father into acting, he chose a different path. After graduating from Occidental College, he served in the Marine Corps Reserve and later worked as a television journalist, earning respect for his professionalism and determination to build a career on his own, rather than relying on his famous family name. Despite his promising future, Jonathan struggled with personal difficulties. On June 26, 1975, he was found dead at his home in California at just 30 years old. Authorities ruled his death a suicide. The tragedy devastated Gregory Peck, who later admitted it was the greatest heartbreak of his life, and something he never truly recovered from. Friends said the actor carried the pain for the rest of his years. Jonathan's death forever changed the Peck family. Although Gregory Peck continued acting and humanitarian work, Those close to him believed the loss of his eldest son remained one of the deepest wounds he ever endured. Today, Jonathan Peck rests at Holy Cross Cemetery in Culver City, California. While visitors continue to celebrate Gregory Peck's remarkable legacy, Jonathan's grave is rarely visited. Overshadowed by one of Hollywood's most respected stars, his story serves as a quiet reminder that even the children of cinema's greatest legends can slowly fade from public memory. Number 12. Tim Rooney. Mickey Rooney was one of Hollywood's greatest child stars, appearing in hundreds of films during a career that lasted nearly 9 decades. But while his name became part of movie history, the life of his son, Tim Rooney, followed a far quieter path. Born on January 4, 1947, Tim Rooney entered show business at a young age, often appearing in television series throughout the 1950s and 1960s. He acted alongside his father in the sitcom Mickey, and also appeared in popular shows such as Bewitched, Maverick, and Dr. Kildare. Although he displayed talent as a young performer, he never achieved the lasting fame that surrounded the Rooney family. As the years passed, Tim gradually stepped away from Hollywood. Later in life, he was diagnosed with dermatomyositis, a rare inflammatory muscle disease that slowly affected his health. He spent his final years living quietly, far removed from the spotlight that had once surrounded him as a child actor. Tim Rooney died on September 23, 2006, at his ranch in Hemet, California, at the age of 59 after battling the disease for several years. His passing received little media attention, despite his connection to one of the most recognizable names in entertainment. Today, Tim Rooney rests at San Jacinto Valley Cemetery in San Jacinto, California. While Mickey Rooney continues to be celebrated as one of Hollywood's most enduring legends, Tim's grave remains a peaceful and rarely visited place. His story reminds us that not every child born into a famous family remains in the public eye, and many quietly fade from memory despite once sharing Hollywood's brightest stage. Number 13. Diane Linkletter. Art Linkletter was one of America's most beloved television personalities, known for his warmth, humor, and decades of success on radio and television. But behind his cheerful public image was a heartbreaking family tragedy that forever changed his life: the loss of his daughter, Diane Linkletter. Born in 1948, Diane grew up in a household recognized across the country. Unlike her famous father, she had little interest in becoming a television star. Friends described her as intelligent, creative, and full of potential. She was attending college and looking forward to building a life of her own when tragedy struck unexpectedly. On October 4, 1969, Diane fell from the 6th-floor window of her apartment in West Hollywood, California, at just 20 years old. Her sudden death shocked the nation and received enormous media attention. At the time, Art Linkletter publicly blamed LSD for the tragedy, believing the drug had influenced his daughter's behavior. Although later reports questioned whether she had actually taken LSD that day, the devastating loss remained one of the most painful moments of his life. In the years that followed, Art Linkletter devoted much of his time to speaking about drug awareness and the emotional impact of losing a child. Despite continuing his successful television career, friends said he never fully recovered from Diane's death. Today, Diane Linkletter rests at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California. While many people still remember Art Linkletter's remarkable career, Diane's grave is rarely visited. Her story remains one of Hollywood's most heartbreaking family tragedies, reminding us how quickly a promising young life can be lost and gradually fade from public memory. Number 14. Matthew Ansara. Barbara Eden became a television icon through I Dream of Jeannie, while Michael Ansara earned respect for his long career in film and television. But behind their success was the heartbreaking story of their only son, Matthew Ansara. Born on August 29, 1965, Matthew grew up surrounded by Hollywood. Inspired by his parents, he pursued acting and appeared in several television series and films during the 1980s and 1990s. He also developed a passion for fitness and bodybuilding, hoping to establish himself beyond the shadow of his famous family. Those close to him believed he had the talent and determination to build a successful career of his own. However, Matthew struggled with drug addiction for many years. Although he entered rehabilitation several times and worked hard to rebuild his life, the battle proved incredibly difficult. In his final years, friends said he was optimistic about the future and had recently begun preparing for new acting opportunities. Tragically, on June 26, 2001, Matthew was found dead in his car in Monrovia, California, at the age of 35. The Los Angeles County coroner ruled that he died from an accidental heroin overdose. His sudden death devastated both Barbara Eden and Michael Ansara, who later spoke openly about the pain of losing their only child. Today, Matthew Ansara rests at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Hollywood Hills, California. While fans continue to remember Barbara Eden and Michael Ansara for their remarkable careers, Matthew's grave remains a quiet and rarely visited place. His story stands as a heartbreaking reminder that even the children of beloved Hollywood stars can be overwhelmed by personal struggles and gradually fade from public memory. Number 50. Lindsay Crosby. Bing Crosby became one of the most successful entertainers in American history, selling millions of records and starring in countless classic films. But behind his extraordinary career was a family touched by repeated tragedy, including the heartbreaking story of his youngest son, Lindsay Crosby. Born on January 5, 1938, Lindsay grew up in one of Hollywood's most famous households. Like several members of the Crosby family, he briefly explored acting and singing, but he never achieved the remarkable success of his legendary father. Living under the weight of the Crosby name brought constant pressure, and Lindsay struggled for years with emotional difficulties and finding his own identity outside of his father's enormous legacy. As time passed, those personal struggles became increasingly difficult. Friends and relatives later recalled that Lindsay had experienced periods of depression and found it hard to escape comparisons with one of America's most beloved entertainers. On December 11, 1989, Lindsay Crosby died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound at his home in California. He was 51 years old. His death shocked those who knew the Crosby family and became another painful chapter in a family that had already endured multiple personal losses over the years. Today, Lindsay Crosby rests at Holy Cross Cemetery in Culver City, California. While Bing Crosby continues to be remembered as one of Hollywood's greatest stars, Lindsay's grave receives very few visitors. Overshadowed by his father's legendary career, his story reminds us that fame and success cannot shield a family from heartbreak, and that some lives quietly fade from public memory despite being connected to one of entertainment's most iconic names. The stories you've heard today remind us that fame does not guarantee happiness, and a famous last name does not protect anyone from tragedy. While their parents became immortal Hollywood legends, these sons and daughters slowly faded from public memory, leaving behind quiet graves that few people visit today. If you enjoyed this journey through Hollywood's forgotten history, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Legends Never Fade, and turn on notifications so you never miss another remarkable story. Which of these lives touched you the most? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.